We are live. Hello and welcome, Success Grade Nation, to this episode of the Success Grade podcast with your host, Hussein Talib. In this episode, with me here, Neil Rogers, to talk about how working in the hospitality industry prepares you for virtually any success in business or life. A published author of Bar Tips, Everything I Needed to Know in Sales I Learned Behind the Bar. Neil is a marketing and hospitality expert, VP of Sales at Rogers Marketing, and founder of Positive Activity. Neil, welcome to this episode of the Success Secret podcast.
Welcome. Glad to have you. We're glad to be here.
Awesome to have you, Neil. So first of all, because you are in the Success Secret podcast, I want to learn from you, and you have an astonishing story to tell. But first of all, what is success to you? And through the years, and you surely met a lot of people with what you're doing, and we're going to be talking about now. What do you think success is, and how, or did you hear people say success is and you don't agree with?
Well, success. Well, ironically enough, I just put together a talk on it's called The Little Things, and I quote an entrepreneur, author, and a motivational speaker by the name of Jim Rohn. So Jim Rohn also he mentored Tony Robbins. So, but his take on it was success is neither accidental or magical. It is the natural consequence of applying the basic fundamentals consistently. And that's what we talk about a lot in Bar Tips. Everything is fundamentals. Everything is there is no complex marketing theory. So it's the little things. So it's accumulation of the little things that I think brings you to success. And that's a both personal and a professional success, because success doesn't come without being happy. You have to be happy. You have to be in a positive mindset before you can achieve success. Success, wealth and whatnot without happiness is not success, in my view.
Cool. Because I also understand that you like this quote: if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way, by Napoleon Hill and his
Napoleon Hill.
book
Yep.
Rich. And you also mentioned Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. So these guys on the path of, like, you have to do the basic fundamentals right, because the most generally people forget the basic fundamentals are the most important thing to base on, and generally miss. So how would you, like, for example, in your own career and your own what you used to do in being uh, with a lot of people, dealing with a lot of people, how did you think that things will go along with what you are doing in that hospitality area of bars? Or I'm sure you seen a lot of people, but did you think that yourself, this is something I did want to do and I would feel successful doing for a long time, or did you think that I want to grow to something different?
Oh, yeah. So I stumbled into being a bartender. I was not very successful coming out of high school. I stumbled a little bit around in terms of my college education. Didn't really have a focus or a vision of what I wanted to go and do. And I wound up in the always worked in the hospitality business, in various aspects, in the kitchen, washing dishes, making sandwiches, making breakfast, and got out in front and started bar backing. And then I decided, this is kind of cool. I'd like to be a bartender. That was really my only criteria. It wasn't like a career path or whatnot. I just thought it was cool. Maybe the girls would like me better, right? It wasn't any. But what happened is when I started to serve and I got that immediate feedback, I liked it. And then I wanted more of that. It was almost like a mental drug, where I enjoyed making people happy, asking them questions. What are you thinking about tonight? What do you feel? Are you a vodka person? Do you like beer? Do you like whatever the questions were? And you're just probing. And then you give them something that they like, and they go, wow, So it became innate to me, like it was something that was in me that I just enjoyed doing. So it wasn't work. Hey, how you doing? What's going on tonight? What are you thinking about? Casual conversation, And so from there, though, I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And because, basically I didn't want to work weekends the rest of my life, So I mean, if you want to make money in that business, you got to work. Although I did wind up working a lot of Saturday mornings in sales, so and
Yeah,
trade shows and all that. But people would say because of your interpersonal skills, sales could be a good thing for you. So I set my path on sales. Now I've got to get this college degree because it's still today is still something you need, I think, in a lot of cases if you're going to be in business. I'm not so sure. I'm not saying it's worth a lot, but I mean, but what I did was now that I've got a vision, I've got a path, I've got some, mentorship, right? People are saying, you're good at this. Maybe you could be good at that. Oh, okay. So I went back to school and I learned how to be good at school. And I learned things like showing up, taking notes, asking questions, um, looking to over deliver by doing extra work, do the special things, go to the office hours. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like sales, doesn't it? So that's exactly so. And so I wound up being a very good student, and then I started out my sales career, and the rest, as they say, is history.
yeah. You like what you build on, like talking to people and interacting with people and having or listening or sharing or meeting people is a great experience, and you can learn a lot from and also support you, and what you did to yourself with that is something amazing. Like you have to do that. So was that the case that actually inspired you to write your book, Bar Tips, because you wanted to share what you have learned through the years and
Well,
it
that that's
increases
that's the
people.
that's the that would be the end product of it yet. I mean, I didn't wake up one day thinking I was going to write a book, but we had this thing going on, you may recall, a pandemic, and I was looking for something to do that would, keep myself from going crazy. So a friend of mine encouraged me to write a book, and I just really said, what do I have to say? Then I started thinking about it. I said, well, hold on. My daughter was being honored at a Chamber of Commerce meeting for being a really something 30 under 30 to watch as being a success path, right? The person who gave the talk, the keynote speech, was a gentleman who brought an organization, a franchise organization called Five Guys Burgers to New Hampshire.
Hmm.
I liked his speech. He was a nuts and bolts kind of guy. He wasn't going to give you any big words. You didn't need to break out the thesaurus or the dictionary. He just said, there was this thing that we do in hospitality. It's called pre-meal. Pre-meal is where you get the team together and you talk about what might be the specials tonight, what we did last year, what we don't have tonight, those types of things. And then there'd be a little bit of a fire and brimstone rah-rah speech. Let's go have a great night, right? So his speech went something like this. We're not in the burger business. We're not in the fry business. We're not in the soda business. We're not in the shake business. We're in the hospitality business. I went just like this. I looked at my wife in point of context. I met Lori when I was a bartender in Boston and she was a food waitress. I looked at her and I said, I've never left the bar business. I've been tending bar on the road for 30 some odd years. So it just stuck in my head. That was 4 years previous before I started. But I had done some research on how other people, other businesses use hospitality style engagement to interact with their customers and maintain them or keep them, whatever you want to call them, engage them.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I had all these stories, and then I started piecing it together on a big mind map. And I interviewed a whole bunch of people that I worked with and worked for. And as you might well expect, during COVID, that was a fun thing to do, and it was, brought me back to a nice place in my head where where I was young and had everything ahead of me. So it was so that's kind of how it all evolved. It was completely by accident, and but I'm really loving it. I do have, and so in retrospect, I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say in terms of the fundamentals. And I've
Mm.
always been a fundamentals guy. I mean, when I played sports, when I played, whatever it was, I can still tell you how to run a fast break in basketball that we did in 1975.
Mm. So why do you think people ignore the fundamentals? Why they think that, like generally, I can speak sometimes about myself and a lot of us, I guess. Sometimes when we read, for example, some kind of article, people think that they are the expert on that subject. So exactly, but they don't really actually implement the basics that are the most important things, and they think, yeah, if I learn the advanced stuff, that would actually help. So why do you think this happens?
They're trying to rush the process.
Mm.
There's a process to everything. Now, you may hit one out of the park and just, you know, make a phone call, somebody answers your call, you make a sale. It's not likely. You got to go through some sort of process, right? And so, and the process are all about, as Jim Rohn says, consistently applying the basic fundamentals. This after that, after this, after that, and then you get a phone. Then you get somebody on the phone, and then what is your fundament? How are you going to handle the phone call? Then you have a meeting. How do you handle the meeting? How do you set it up? Are you consistent with how you set it up? So that you get measurable or predictable results. And so all those things have got a simple process to go with them. And we have a very simple way of doing things. Neil was never going to be an engineer, my friend. Never. Never going to be a doctor. You can pour whiskey and sell things. That's it. So
Awesome. So speaking of selling things, what is the thing that is salespeople doing wrong in general, and what is the thing that they should, if we are talking about steps, for example, or certain framework, how they should do it? Like a lot of for example, I worked in door-to-door sales, and as you know, this type of sales, for example, they have some kind of script all the time to just
mhm.
keep regurgitating. So, what is the best way to practice sales and the mistakes to avoid in that?
Well, I would suggest that if you do have a script to use, that you make it your own
Mm.
so that you don't say it the same way twice. You still get to the same place, but you don't sound scripted, because I don't know about you, but I can tell a scripted salesperson a mile away. And I don't, and I really, I want somebody to show me creativity. I don't respond to any email marketing only to say, does this actually work? Where's the rest of it? How else are you engaging me? How else are you being creative? How are you making me interested in you, that you're interested in doing business with me? Other than just some blanket spray and pray deal. Now, I granted, not every sale is one that you can do, um, that you can spend a lot of money marketing and all that on. I get that. But but if you do get that, if you do get um to the household, the person of the house, you listen to them.
Mm. Definitely.
Yeah.
So a part of being a good salesperson is to actually to listen to your customers.
Number one,
Mm.
two
That's
ears, one mouth. Use them in that proportion.
yeah.
And I got an old he's not old, but he's a guy that I worked with years. Well, I guess we're all old. We worked with him years ago and been friendly with him forever. And he used to get us together, and we were in manufacturers reps in the sporting goods business. He'd get us together at trade shows, and he'd say, "Oh, we got to cover off all these booths, make sure we're engaging the customers, yada yada yada, all that stuff." And remember one thing: never avoid an opportunity to keep your mouth shut.
Well, that's a great advice, I would say, because
And
it
you
is.
can practice, and these things are all like practice makes perfect. You want to, if your audience wants to really practice it, And wherever you may be in the world, you have to have somewhere where you have a meal or you have a drink or you have a coffee or whatever. Sit next to somebody you don't know and ask them a question and avoid and resist with all might not to interrupt them. Don't overtalk them. And please don't one better them. Do you know what a one better, you know what I mean by that?
No.
So one better is you tell me a great story. I go, well, hold on. I got one better.
Mm.
See how that can be a little annoying, especially if you don't know them all that well. You're just getting to know somebody, whether it's a sale. So you practice it in that fashion. The other thing I tell people all the time, if you're going for a walk, if you're walking your dog, if you're say hello to everybody you meet. You're not going to bat 1,000. Somebody's had a bad day. They're not, I don't want to talk to anybody, whatever. You just move along. You give them some grace and move along. So those are all simple things. We're not going to break. We're not going to, it's not like, we're not recreating the wheel.
Mm.
It's the fundamentals.
Exactly. Like you don't have to think of yourself, for example, as someone who's trying to sell. You have to think of yourself of someone maybe trying to serve and add value to people more than as a title as a salesperson, right? And it is important, like you mentioned, people try to get what they think they barely know the basics and they get to advanced methods or tools because they think that they are going to get faster results, faster to
Yeah.
the goals. And this is might not be the case. You sometimes will have to have no results after a while, and you ask yourself why I don't have any results. And that's actually frustrating to be at that point, so you need to master the basic fundamentals.
So, and remember this one. This is obviously you're a Napoleon Hill fan. You knew the quote from Think and Grow Rich. I've got another one for you. I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built on truth and justice. I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. So you may call that a little bit of the golden rule. How do I want to be treated, right? I'm going to treat them like that.
Mm.
I will succeed by attracting myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve others. And that sits in my little journal book that I write in every day.
Cool. That's amazing. You're writing that every day for every thought that you read or you have in your head.
Well, it's more along my mindset practice. Right?
Mm.
We talked about getting your mindset right. So, I mean, that's probably another thing that a lot of people, you just get out and they get going. If you can, I mean, everything's different, but if you can spend a little time and a little thought about how you're going to set up your day, maybe in a little meditation, maybe you take a walk if it's possible, something in your basement, whatever. Maybe you think about what you appreciate, right? What are the 3 things I appreciate from yesterday? What intentional recall do I have of something that makes me happy? So again, we talked about earlier that success comes after happiness. It's not happiness is not a byproduct of success.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, there's a study in a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. We control 90% of our happiness just in our mindset. 10% is the stuff we have. This is a Harvard research program. Great book for your listeners. Happiness Advantage.
Yeah,
Of course, right
definitely.
after they get bar tips.
Yeah, because like material things, like they have some kind of a joy for the moment, but after a while, like the joy is going to disappear. It's not going to last. For example, buy a new car, brand new car, as you are going to enjoy it for a day, for a week, for a month, maybe, but after that, it becomes the norm. Like
That's
that
my
that
car.
yeah, it's eventually it's a car from A to go from A to Z. So
Yep.
it does not really matter that much at the end of it. So yeah, but what you mentioned there, like it's one of the things that also that to give without expecting anything in return, and this could be applied to salespeople and or for example, whatever it is that we do as humans, because like we want to serve and not expect the sale or not expect anything back or not expect that this person should give me something in return for what I am providing them with. This kind of thinking or mentality is not going to give you some kind of perspective, freedom of perspective in your head, and you keep ask you if we do that, it's going to make us prisoners of our own mind, I think might be so.
It will. Here's the thing. What you have to know, what I believe, I don't do anything. I mean, what I do for other people is really kind of a selfish pursuit on my part. I enjoy it. I enjoy reaching out. I want to make sure that without being intrusive. I mean, I just had a friend, well, two friends, husband and wife, just went through three of the worst weeks of their lives. I mean, they had one had cancer surgery, one had a bypass. I just made sure I sent them I just nothing but a little heart emoji and a thumbs up. Heart emoji to my woman friend and to her husband. I gave them a thumbs up. That's all I said. I don't want, don't tell me what's going on. I don't need you. If you feel like telling me, I'm all ears, but that's not why I'm doing it. I know I'm not trying to pry. I don't want to know about it. You tell me you feel good, I'm happy. So this week, as an example, I ran into an eye doctor of mine, lovely lady. I enjoy her very much. Somehow we got onto this story where she had this bad accident. I want to say I think it's like 6 years ago. She's at the bottom of her driveway at her house. Somebody veered off the road and hit her.
Hmm.
It was a kid. Well, 20, I think it was a 22-year-old person texting. So I looked at it, I said, so did he have a problem? He goes, no. But she didn't sue him? He goes, no. I didn't want to ruin his life. He made a mistake. Woman had 32 broken bones, head injury, brain injured. Did not want to ruin this person's life. Amazing. Just amazing. So, and I'm sure that person is probably, hopefully they're paying it forward. Hopefully they're doing better. But she had a couple of other things. She talked about how she brings her kids. So they go to around here is a Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know if you have them over there. It's a coffee place. And she is the person that's always buying a coffee for the person behind her.
Cool.
You never know how somebody else's day, but you just made their day.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's
But
part of how you can, the things that you can do to make yourself happy.
yeah, but
Be
don't you
be more
think
positive.
in the example of in that example of yours now, for example, that also as humans we are responsible for our actions. Like it's great from her that she's so gracious that she did that, but
Right.
also at the same time that someone did something wrong. So for example, someone driving a car in a at 150 miles or 100 miles or whatever it is beyond the speed limit is something kind of being it is these speed limits are for the safety of the people in general. So someone doing more than that, for example, is being not responsible. So don't you think, for example, we should also be responsible in order to have this kind of mindset that also we have other people in our lives that we could harm them in that way also. So I don't know, just a thought.
Oh, I think that I'm sure the person, excuse me, I'm sure the person got in trouble to some degree. She just didn't sue him.
Mm.
She didn't jump, she didn't piggyback on and say, okay, now I'm gonna sue you and we're gonna take whatever you or your parents own. And all the insurance covered all the costs and all that. So I'm sure the person lost their license. Maybe they spent a little, maybe they probation. I don't know. I did. Those are the questions I don't ask. It's
Yeah.
just like I heard the random act of kindness. And I was like, okay, that sounds great to me. I said,
Yeah.
I just looked at it, I said, you made my day.
Exactly. Like what you mentioned in your example, you're just giving a sticky note with the thumbs up in it. So it's sometimes these simple gestures are like
Yeah.
checking on people with the simplest ways now. We have phones and so the connection my point is that sometimes social media, though it's easier, we don't really use it that much, but we should more. It could be also helpful, for example, and have a more connections with other people in general. So now, from your side, what in your business, in your career, how did or someone told you some kind of advice that was a good advice or a bad advice? Do you have some kind of examples?
Got a great one. Best one ever. Guy by the name of Jim Gallahue. I was in the food business, and he was kind of a mentor of mine. And Jim was a kind of a wiseacre, trying to use the right parlance so that your whole audience understands, sarcastic person, right? Give you a hard time if that's. But when you get in front of a customer, he was unbelievable. He was a consummate salesperson. And one of the things he told me is whenever anything goes wrong, start here. What was my role in this? How could I have done better? Did I give them the right information? Did I send it off in time? Did I, before you start lashing out at, in this case, the warehouse or the truck driver or all those other people, you think, okay, so that disarms it. You solve the problem. And if you can, you solve it without the customer knowing.
Hmm.
And you move
Definitely.
on. So you don't have to, you may say, hey, yeah, by the way, to the truck driver, listen, make sure everything gets off the truck next time. I think we missed something. Something kindly done. Yeah. But yeah, that's the big one. That's the one. All the other ones are pertinent too. I mean, but that's the one I learned from somebody else. The other one, all the other stuff, I just gleaned from. And there's actually a great story that I tell about great bartender story is you know what a martini is, correct?
Yeah.
So martini is actually gin and vermouth, but a vodka martini is obviously with vodka. So this woman ordered a vodka martini. Well, here's a little dirty little secret. Nobody wants the vermouth. They just want the vodka, right? So my buddy made the vodka martini, poured it into a up because she wanted it straight up. Put a lemon twist in it because that's what you put in a vodka martini. She took a sip out of it and she goes, "That's not dry enough," which means there's too much vermouth in it. So he walks by me and he goes, "I've been doing this for 15 years. I've never put a drop of vermouth in a martini." So he just whispers that in my ear. But what does he do? He goes back over, ice down the mixing glass. He pours it in front of her, not in a showy way, not to show her up. He just poured the drink, strained it over ice, put it in the up glass, put it to her. She takes a sip. She goes, "That's the one. Same drink." But what did he do? He didn't get into beef with her. There was no fighting. There was no argument. Didn't have to get the manager involved. Didn't escalate at all. So he poured out 2 ounces of booze. Doesn't do it every day, right?
Yeah,
So that's
sometimes you gotta humor people, I guess.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, you just, yeah, it's just, and you never know what they're going through in that day, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So now, can you tell us something that can add to people some kind of a takeaway or value, or something that we missed talking about, do you think, Neil?
Well, I think that is the greatest one. I think the other things, I mean, if they want to take away another little quote, I call hospitality the things that my little definition of hospitality is doing things for people, and kind of like we talked about earlier, so that maybe just doesn't directly affect you that day, right?
Mm.
So, and the story I use in the book is one of these places I worked at was more of a seafood restaurant, but they had a steak. And so someone wanted a steak. Well, I know right over here. the Chart House. It's got all the steaks in the world. It's a steakhouse. So do I sell them my steak? Or do I say, if you're really looking for steak, if your heart is set on steak, I'd go to the Chart House. They went to the Chart House. Did I lose a customer? No, I gained a relationship. I'm sure for days they told that story. Yeah, this guy, he told us all about that. And it was, and I know they had a great time, and I know they had a great meal. And so they'll come back and see me. And they did.
So you were a great referral for them. I'm sure someone at that place maybe referred to you. So because there is some kind of because you know they do it maybe better than you do, for example. So
Right.
it does not like you have to force everything into people. You if there is a better option, give them the option. So that's a good generosity and giving to people the
Goes
great.
back to integrity.
Yeah. It,
Integrity.
that's very important, like being honest and in being honest and true to yourself and other people is something that is very important. And actually, like for example, in sales in general, if you are pushing the sale, they might take it right now, but they are not going to be a customer for life. But if you serve them like the example that you mentioned, for example, they might come back to you and be a customer for you, maybe not now, but maybe in the 3 months, 6 months, a year. So that's very important to help
Yep.
other people out in any way that is possible. That's a great example, yeah. So, Neil, where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you, and see what you do?
So you have my website for the book and my programs is called positiveactivity.net. And I am Neil at positiveactivity.net.
Awesome. Well, it's very amazing speaking to you, Neil. You brought an amazing perspective actually into this. It's very simple and basic, but we need to always master the basics because if we don't master the basics, any additional information or knowledge we get is kind of maybe useless, I guess. So we need to have some kind of a building blocks because generally, if we have a building, it has some kind of foundation, and that's the important thing to build on. Thank you very much,
I'll
Neil.
leave you with this. Let me just leave you with this one thought that piggybacks on that. We can close off.
Yeah.
Do you do yoga at all?
No.
Okay. So I do yoga. Do you know what they tell us all the time? What
No.
they remind us to do?
What?
Breathe. Who'd have thought that you'd have to be reminded to breathe?
That's true, yes.
Wouldn't we consider that a fundamental? So, so yeah.
Yeah, so this is very important. Like if you need a moment, take a minute to take a breath and just calm yourself down, whether you're angry, frustrated, or
Yep.
have kind of situation, whether you are in traffic or trying to sell something or to help other people, even if they are angry or whatever it is, take a breath
That's
and
it.
have a moment for yourself. That's very important, actually. Yes. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much, Neil. Thank you.
You're welcome.